Hey Wolfpack, and welcome back. I hope all is well, and I hope you had a good week. Today, we're reading 3 more police stories. But before we start, do you know any stories that have happened recently that the police have let out? If so, comment down below. I'd love to hear it. Now with that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. "911 call center and police dispatch, 6/22/2018, 11:23 p.m. EST. Caller, unknown, from payphone. Dispatcher: 911, what's your emergency? Caller: people are heard laughing in the background. Hi, who's calling? Sir, is there an emergency? Sound of vomiting. Sir, are you alright? I show you're calling from here. Sound of something brushing against the phone. Huh? Yeah, I'm alright. Apparent gunshot heard in the background. People continue to laugh. Wow, hey, can I, hold on. Sir, was that a gunshot? Is everyone okay? People in the background begin to cheer as caller hangs up. Dispatch Channel 1. Dispatcher: all units, I need someone to follow up on a strange call from here. Anyone in the area? Car 12. Klein here. We're about a block out. Heading over. What are we looking for? Head to Channel 2. Roger. Dispatch Channel 2. Dispatcher: hey Klein, sorry to bug you. Just sounds like some drunk kids playing with a phone. Possible gunshot though, be careful. Car 12. Will do. Talking about the payphone on here? Yeah, that's the one. We're here. No one around. Sounded like a lot of people. See if anyone around saw where they went. No, I mean it's a ghost town here. Not a soul in sight. I don't know what to tell you. Call came from there like 2 minutes ago. Well, we'll take a look around. Away from Mike. Hey, park over there. 911 call center from police dispatch. 6/23/2018, 12:17 a.m. EST. Caller, redacted. Dispatcher: 911, what is your emergency? Caller: people are heard laughing in the background. Oh, hey, hello again. Fancy meeting you here. Sir, this is not a party line. Calling 911 as a joke is a crime. Caller: people in the background begin to cheer. Caller is harder to hear. Listen, Apparent gunshot. Oh, man. Indistinguishable. Hit him again! Yeah! Sir, what's happening over there? Are you in danger? What? Me? Nah. Whoa, who's that? People in the background start to scream as the phone is hung up. Dispatch Channel 2. Dispatcher: Car 12, come in. Car 12. Dispatch Channel 1. Dispatcher: all units, is anyone near redacted? Possible disturbance, maybe a prank caller. Car 3. Car 3, we're nearby, heading that way. Dispatcher: head to Channel 3, Car 3. Roger. Car 12, you guys back on Channel 1? No answer. Channel 3. Dispatcher: hey, on your way. Could you swing by here and check on Car 12? I can't get a hold of them. They should be on Channel 2. No problem. 2 minutes pass. I see Car 12. No sign of Klein and the new guy. Away from the mic. What's his name again? Indistinguishable answer. Weird name. Hey, dispatch. Want us to take a look around or head on to over there? Dispatcher: move on. I'll keep trying them on Channel 2. Will do. Channel 2. Dispatcher: Car 12, you guys alright? I'm gonna have to send someone over there if I don't get a response pretty quick. No response. Channel 3, 5 minutes later. Car 3. Alright, pulling up to the house now. Interior lights are off. I'll go bang on the door. Dispatcher: alright. Possible gunshot from residence. Be careful. Car 3. Now you tell me. Away from Mike. Hey Carl, get the gear. Car 3. Officer Johnson. Channel 3, portable radio test. Dispatcher, loud and clear. Car 3. Officer Key, Channel 3, radio check. Dispatcher, loud and clear. Car 3, Officer Johnson. Sound of banging on the front door. Redacted. Police! Car 3, Officer Key. Whistles. Car 3, Officer Johnson. Bangs on the door again. This is the police! Open up! Car 3, Officer Key. Hey, looks like they got some furniture overturned in here. Car 3, Officer Johnson. And a possible gunshot. Are we good to enter, dispatch? Dispatcher. Let me run it by the boss. Indistinguishable talking. You are good to enter, Officer Johnson. Car 3. Officer Johnson. The sound of the door being kicked in. Key, clear that side. If anyone is home. This is the police department. We have reason to believe the occupants of this home may be in danger. If anyone is here, announce yourself now. Car 3. Officer Key. Kitchen clear. What happened in here? Officer Johnson. We'll figure it out once we clear the house. Take the bedroom on the right. Sound of the doors being kicked in. Officer Key. Clear! Officer Johnson. Dispatch, there's no one home. Looks like there was maybe a scuffle in the living room, but there's no blood or anything. Officer Key. Hey Johnson, the power's out. Sound of a switch being flicked over and over. Officer Johnson. Sound of the phone being picked up and set back down. Phone's working though. Hey dispatch, did car 12 look for these guys earlier? Dispatcher. Yeah, but they didn't find anything either. I still haven't been able to reach them. Car 3. Officer Johnson. Alright, we're heading back to here. Keep trying them. Dispatcher. Will do. Channel 2. Dispatcher. Car 12, you guys get back yet? Car 3 is inbound to your location. Should be there shortly. No response. 911 call center and police dispatch. 6/23/2018, 12:26 EST. Caller, unknown. Payphone. Dispatcher. 911, what is your emergency? Caller. People are laughing in the background. Oh, hey, dispatch. Dispatcher. Officer Klein, did you find the prank callers? Caller. Sound of the phone being handed off. Ha ha. Hey, who are you calling? Hello? People in the background cheer. Dispatcher. Who is this? Caller. Ha ha. What? Oh, yeah. Ha ha. Apparent gunshot. People in the background are cheering. Channel 3. Dispatcher. Guys, hurry up. I just got a call from that payphone again. Car 3. Roger. We're almost... Whoa, you hear that, Kay? Dispatcher. What is it? Car 3. Like a gunshot or something. Pull it up now. 911 call center and police dispatch. Caller. Oh, looks like your officers are pulling up. People in the background cheer. Phone is dropped and clangs against the base of the payphone stand. Channel 3. Car 3. Dispatch, no one's here. Dispatcher. That's impossible. They just hung up like 3 seconds ago. It sounded like there were 50 people there. Car 3. I don't know what to tell you. No one is around, but we'll take a look. In the police department's official report, Officers Klein and Nagarter were never found, nor were the residents of the area. Car 12 has been remanded to evidence lockup and has not been in service since. The case is ongoing, but so far, no evidence has surfaced to help track them down or explain how or why they went missing. The details surrounding their disappearance and the voice print of their unknown caller matches 73 similar disappearance cases spanning 22 years in all 48 contiguous states. If you couldn't tell from the title, I'm a police officer. No, I'm not going to say which department I work for, but I will say that it is in Massachusetts. And for the sake of you all not losing your shit, trying to figure out where this happened, I figure a little bit about myself couldn't hurt. For the sake of the purpose, we'll say my name is Jack. No, this isn't my real name, but we will pretend it is. I grew up wanting to be a cop my whole life. Nothing else interested me, except being a police officer. I have been a cop for almost 7 years now, and I have a wife and son. I work graveyard shifts in a small urban town, a little while from Boston. Most calls I take involve junkies tweaking out and making an ass of themselves, or petty neighbors calling about trivial shit that we can't get involved in. Only a handful of times have I been called on regular things like robberies and homicides. Anyway, last night I was doing my regular patrols, waiting for dispatch to give me something to do. It was around 1:03 a.m. when dispatch chimed in my ear during my lunch break. 251, come in. Great fucking timing, guys, I thought before responding. Go ahead. We have a call coming from 5 blocks from your location about a homeless man in his mid-50s acting a bit suspicious. You gotta be fucking kidding me, I thought before responding again. Copy. What's the address? She gave me the address, putting the call near an abandoned construction site, well known for being a drug and homeless spot. The address itself was in a poor neighborhood that consisted of trailer trash and immigrants. Trying to build their new life, I walked out of the restaurant, burger in hand, and got in my cruiser before heading off to the address. When I arrived at the situation, the lady who made the call was on her front porch, waiting for me. She was a frail old Latino lady who looked like she had just seen a ghost. I got out of my car and walked up to her, keeping my social distance before asking her what the problem was. In broken English, she told me that she was spoiling her grandkids with a late-night kids movie when she heard something hit the side of her home. When she looked outside, she saw an old man banging his head against the wall before crawling on all fours and twitching violently. At that point, she called the police and waited for us to show up. About 2 minutes before I arrived, however, the suspect got up and walked in the direction of the abandoned construction site. Great, I thought, still giving the lady my full attention. Another tweaker called to add to the books. I thanked her for her cooperation and turned my head back to my car when I heard her yell, "Wait!" I immediately turned back around to face her. She held up a finger, saying to wait for 1 second before she shuffled back inside her house as fast as she could, leaving her door open. As I waited, I saw 2 small children, no older than 10, peek around the doorframe to see me. I gave them a warm smile and waved at them before they quickly disappeared from my sight. I sighed and waited a little bit longer until the old lady came back out, holding a small crucifix in one hand and a small jar of what I could only assume to be water. She came down the stairs, approaching me as I backed up, telling her that we need to keep our distance. She told me to shut up, calling me a dumbass under her breath in Spanish, before standing still right in front of me. I towered over her, just being under 6 feet tall, while she couldn't have been taller than 5'4". She held out her hand, offering me the small crucifix. It was a small carving of the cross with a crude Jesus carved into the front of it. She took my hand from my side and placed the cross inside, closing my hand into a fist. "For safety," she said, before opening the jar of water and sprinkling me with it, while saying what I think was an old prayer in Spanish. I don't speak a whole lot of Spanish, but I do know enough to understand what she was saying. She was blessing me for safety against all evil in this world, and the next while also praying that my family comes to no harm, which I thought was a little strange, but I shrugged it off before thanking her and walking back to my car. As I got in, I called dispatch and told them I was heading to the abandoned site to investigate. "Do you want backup?" Dispatch asked. I responded, "Negative, that won't be necessary." And with that, I drove in the direction of the building, scanning for the suspect and putting the crucifix in the shirt pocket over my heart. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe that religious objects can have positive effects on the mind, making you feel more calm and secure. So, I figured that I was just showing respect for the old lady by putting it over my heart. I scanned the roads and sidewalks for the suspect for what I felt like hours before I came upon the abandoned construction site. Originally, the building was meant to be a 4-story low-income housing complex with the same layout as a hotel. After a year or 2 of construction, however, funding for the project was cut and had to be abandoned even though it was nearly complete, save for the plumbing and electricity. The site had been abandoned for over 5 years now and had attracted druggies and transients, or homeless if you prefer. The building was barely lit up by the light poles along the street, and the chain-link fence that once kept people out was now bent and warped, allowing anyone to enter and exit as they pleased, giving it an eerie feel. Me and a couple of buddies of mine made jokes that it was the headquarters of a secret society that was plotting world domination. When I got out of my car, it wasn't the building itself that was the creepy part. It was the fact that everyone who was squatting there was outside with fear in their eyes. I turned on my body cam and approached one of the transients. She was a lady in her late 30s with an obvious heroin addiction, based on her apparent track marks trailing up and down her arms. I asked her what was going on, and she told me that there was a man on the 3rd floor who nobody had ever seen before and got scared. When I asked her why she got scared, she said that she saw a few people go talk to him before coming back and acting like they had lost their minds. I tried asking her a few more questions, but she just went silent after that. I made my way through the sea of people to a man who fit my description of the original suspect from the lady's house, and questioned him about the lady, confirming my suspicions about him being the suspect. When I questioned him further, he told me that he didn't remember why he went to her house and banged his head. He only knew that he felt like he was instructed to do so. I gave him a citation and told him to not go back to the old lady's house again, which he agreed to. After asking a few more people about the situation, I called it into dispatch and told them to send backup to take care of everyone outside while I went to investigate the strange man. I went back to my patrol car and retrieved my shotgun and a few spare shells before turning on my mounted flashlight, stepping over the now flattened fence and entering the building. We had made multiple drug busts here in the past, so I was pretty familiar with the layout of everything as I swept the 1st floor and made my way to the interior staircase to the 2nd floor. As I kept making my way to the 3rd floor and sweeping the area, I kept tripping over scattered beer bottles and random shit the people here left lying around, nearly eating shit when I ran into a whole shopping cart of crap left in the middle of the hallway. I cursed under my breath as I pushed it aside and made my way to the 3rd floor. Once there, I swept through each room, looking for this mystery man until I came across a locked door. I found this odd because every room I checked before this one was either open or unlocked. I knocked on the door and made my presence known by calling out, "Police! Open up!" When I got no response, I yelled that I was coming in and kicked the door in. Okay, I feel like I should clarify something. Being a cop for 7 years, you see some disturbing shit. I'm not going to go into detail about what I've seen in the past, but just know that it's pretty hard to make me feel disturbed. But what I saw in that room nearly made me shit myself. The room was completely pitch black, except for a tall, skinny man sitting in the middle, staring away from me. When I say that he was tall, I mean that this fucker was impossibly tall. He wore an old gray suit and his head was completely bald. If I had to guess, I'd say he looked like he was in his late 70s. I tried to illuminate the rest of the room with my flashlight, but anywhere I shone my flashlight, the darkness just absorbed it. I began to feel a strong, primal sense of fear as my eyes couldn't look away from the man. My knees began to shake violently, and I could feel my heart rate go through the roof. I fixed my shotgun on the man and tried to calm myself down. This son of a bitch must have had eyes on the back of his head, because as soon as I did, he began to slowly stand up, only making my paralyzing fear worse as I kept my sights on him. Once he was fully standing up, he slowly turned around and faced me, and I got to see what he really looked like. I can't even begin to describe what this thing looked like, but I'll try my best, so bear with me. I call it a thing because there was no way in hell that this was a human being. It was built like one, sure, but it was less of a man than it was a thing. The suit was as old as hell and worn out, but it was still tight enough that I could see its bones sticking out. Its skin was light gray and was covered in burns and blisters, like it had just walked away from a nuclear explosion. And its face. Fucking hell, its damned face. This poor fucking bastard really looked like it had been born in Chernobyl or some shit. Its eyes were the size of light bulbs and were pure white with a small black dot as pupils. Its nose consisted of a triangular hole in the center of its head, and the mouth. Jesus. Just thinking about it makes me want to curl up in fear. Its mouth was fucking massive. The mouth alone took up half of this fucker's head, and the teeth. They weren't sharp and long like some fucked up Stephen King monster. In fact, they were normal teeth. The problem was that it had too many. Its mouth was full of teeth, and when it smiled, that's all you could see. By now, my hands were shaking with the shotgun still pointing in the direction of the thing, though I couldn't tell if I would even hit anything if I pulled the trigger. It looked me dead in the eyes with those ghostly looking eyes and smiled. When I say it smiled from ear to ear, I mean its smile went from ear to fucking ear. Suddenly, through all my fear and panic, I heard it speak. "Hello." Its voice sounded like the creepy YouTube video that everyone was obsessed about a few years ago. What the fuck was it called? Salad Fingers. This thing sounded like Salad Fingers, with that childish British accent. I was shaking with fear at this point, and I wanted to run like hell, but I couldn't move. All I could do was look at this lanky fucker as it spoke. It raised one of its arms and pointed at me with a long, bony finger before saying, "Are you here to take me away?" I had no idea what the fuck to do. Before I could think of something, I had already responded to this thing. Who? It finished my sentence before I could stutter it out. "Who am I?" it asked, tilting its head to the side. It slowly nodded before it answered my question. "Nobody that you would care to know. Nobody cares to know me. Nobody cares about me." It trailed off, mumbling nonsense and whimpering under its breath, no longer paying me much attention. Finally, I found enough strength to snap myself out of my fear-induced paralysis and began backing out of the room. I probably only took 2 steps before the floor creaked under my weight, sending the thing to snap its head in my direction, looking at me with a look I can only describe as pure rage. This thing didn't have any lips, but I could tell it was snarling as it shot right in front of me, putting the barrel of my shotgun directly on its lower abdomen. It was at this point that I realized the inky darkness covering the room was coming from this thing that was now towering over me. I looked up to meet its gaze, only to see pure hatred in its eyes as it spoke once again. "Don't leave me, like the others did." Its voice was a mixture of hatred, desperation, and fear. I responded, Fuck you, asshole," before I pulled the trigger and dumped a slug into this bastard's stomach, causing him to stumble backwards. I quickly bolted out of the door and down the hall toward the main staircase. As I ran, I heard it scream and started slamming into walls, chasing after me. I could tell it was pissed and was gaining on me, but I didn't give a shit. I was just a few feet away from the stairs, but this thing was closing the distance fast. Right before I entered the staircase, I racked my shotgun, putting another slug in the chamber, turned around, and dumped another round down the hall. But when I looked down the hall, where I just shot, where I heard this thing barreling toward me with murderous intent, there was nothing. There was no sign that anything had chased me. Was I hallucinating? Who gives a shit? I told myself. Let's just get the fuck out of there before we find out. Not giving it a second thought, I raced back down the stairs and out of the building, where I was met with multiple squad cars and officers looking intently at me. The next few hours are a blur, but I do remember having to talk with paramedics and telling other officers about what happened on the 3rd floor. Naturally, nobody believed me, and when we reviewed my body cam, we found that I had turned the damn thing off by accident halfway through my sweep of the building. So, there was no real proof of what I had seen, other than the testimony of a few tweakers. I was put on sick leave for the next 3 days to regain my thoughts and got sent home early, being told not to worry about writing a report. When I got home, it was roughly 3:20 a.m., so I made my way up to my room, where I was met with my wife sleeping soundly, before quietly taking off my uniform to change into sweatpants and a t-shirt. As I took my shirt off, I noticed that the crucifix the old lady had given me was missing from where it sat over my heart. I just shrugged it off as me losing it in my car. Somewhere, I got in bed with my wife. She shifted slightly before falling back asleep, to which I followed her into the world of unconsciousness. When I woke up the next morning, I immediately hugged my wife and son before telling my wife everything that had happened last night. She didn't believe my story, but she said that she believed that I believed it. Whatever. It's not like I need anyone to believe me anyway. I know what I saw, and that's good enough for me. A little later in the day, I was helping my wife tidy up our room when I came across something sitting on top of our dresser. It was the crucifix. I thought that maybe my wife had found it on the floor and left it here for me, but there was a note next to it. When I opened it and read what was inside, I became overwhelmed with the same fear I had felt when I first saw that damned thing. Inside was 4 simple words, but they held horrific meaning that makes me fear for my family's safety and caused me to write this in the first place. Please, don't leave me. Update. It's been 3 days since I was put on leave for what I saw in that godforsaken room, and I still can't get that image of the thing out of my head. I've tried though. Oh, how I've tried to distract myself with chores and spending time with my son until I forgot. But that damned thing keeps crawling back into my fucking head. I'm on my 3rd and last day of my sick leave, before I have to go back to work tomorrow night. But I'm not updating to tell you that I'm going back to work. I'm writing this because something else happened. After I found the note, I looked for signs of forced entry, but everything seemed normal. Just as a precaution though, I had a security system installed in my house. Originally, my wife was opposed to the idea because of how expensive it was, but when I told her that a buddy of mine would be installing it for a couple $100, she agreed to it. Once everything was installed and hooked up to our phones, I quickly went over everything, just to be sure that nothing was skipped over. Sure as shit, everything was there. 3 cameras covering the front, 2 in the back, 1 on either side of the house, and 3 inside covering the front door, my wife's room, and my son's room. All coming together for a total of 10 motion sensor cameras to catch this ugly bastard if it ever tried to get close to me again. That night, I checked all the security feed before I went to bed, and of course, nothing strange popped up on the feed. When I woke up, I reviewed the footage, but didn't see a Chernobyl mutant emanating darkness. All I saw were a few raccoons and a stray cat minding their own business. The next night, last night, I did the same thing and went to bed. That night, however, I actually had a nightmare for the first time in over a year. I was sitting in the room where the thing once sat and I was facing the far wall. I looked down to see that I was wearing its suit. The clothes were baggy and loose around me, and the sleeves were long enough to fall over the tips of my fingers, making me look like a small child wearing their dad's suit. In fact, I noticed that I wasn't even in my own body. I was in the body of a young boy, no older than 7, wearing an oversized suit from the early 50s. I couldn't move, but I heard an older man yell at me from somewhere behind. His voice had an accent that I couldn't quite recognize, but I finally, definitely understood what he said. "Now you sit there and think about what you did, you filthy fucking rat." I heard myself squeak out "Please, don't leave me," before the older man screamed back, "Go to hell, you fucking rat," and slammed a heavy metal door behind him. I had no control over my body as I got up from the chair and ran over to the door, banging on it with my tiny fists and pleading for someone to come let me out. I heard the man yell from the other side, "Boy, don't make me get the chain. Get back in your fucking seat and think long and hard about your actions." I reluctantly stepped back from the rusty iron door and headed back to the chair before something caught my eye from a small window I hadn't noticed before. My body moved the chair under the window and I stepped up, peeking outside, only to see a sudden blinding flash of light sending me falling backwards onto the concrete floor. My eyes stung with pain as I weakly got to my feet and blindly made my way to the other door. I heard voices on the other side, talking to each other in panicked tone. "We have to leave immediately," a woman's voice said. "What about the children?" another asked before the familiar man's voice bellowed out, "Fuck the children! The little bastards probably weren't going to survive past 16 anyway. No one gives a shit about orphans. We need to get the fuck out of here now. I heard someone else mutter something about how they were told it was safe and that nothing could go wrong. I immediately started pounding my fist on the door, begging for someone to come let me out. I suddenly felt a rush of heat blow past me as I felt my skin burn and begin to melt. I cried out in utter pain as the heat didn't let up and tried to crawl away from the door, where I thought the heat was coming from at least. But soon, I realized that the heat was coming from everywhere and there was no escape for me from this hell. I crawled back to the chair and pushed it back to the center of the room, where I sat and waited to die. I waited for what felt like hours, hoping that someone would come back to let me out and take me away from this goddamn room as my skin continued to burn and I began to starve. After what felt like weeks, but couldn't have been longer than an hour, I heard the door behind me burst open, but it didn't sound like the metal door I had been banging on, pleading for help. The door sounded wooden and cheap. Curious, I turned around to see what was happening. Instead of a rescuer, here to save the day and wake me up from this nightmare, I was met with something that made me want to cry. It was that thing standing in the doorway, wearing my uniform and pointing a shotgun at my stomach. I heard it speak in that creepy-ass voice, again, looking at me with fear and hatred. "Why did you leave me?" I tried to mutter out a cry for help or to beg this thing for mercy, but nothing like that was able to come out. All that did come out was, "Please don't leave me." To which the thing gave a wide grin, almost enjoying this, and responded, "Fuck you, asshole." Before I could even process what was happening, the thing shot me in the stomach, causing me to wake up screaming. I woke up this morning with a sense of hysteria and fear, my body drenched in sweat, and looked over at my alarm clock. 10:36 a.m. What the fuck? I thought to myself. I almost never sleep in past 9, and what the fuck was that dream? I quickly regained myself and checked the security feed from last night. What I saw completely shook me to my core. I saw myself sleeping next to my wife, peacefully one moment, and the next I saw this thing standing over me. The fact that it had seemingly teleported itself into my fucking bedroom wasn't what unnerved me. It was how its eyes and teeth glistened in the darkness, almost glowing. This fucker was staring down at me sleeping, and it was fucking smiling. I then watched as it placed its hand on my head and closed its eyes, causing me to stir in my sleep. About 2 seconds after it took its hands off my head, it disappeared just as quickly as it had appeared. I then saw something fall from where it once stood, barely making up 3 pixels on my phone, but clearly visible. I threw my phone down and began searching for whatever the fuck this bastard had left behind. After a minute of looking, I found it. A small, folded piece of paper, and once again, the note scared the shit out of me. "Now, do you understand?" And no, I don't understand. I don't fucking understand any of this shit. I tried to show my wife the footage, but the bit where the damn thing appeared was fucking gone. Nearly 10 fucking minutes of footage just erased from existence. What the hell was going on? My son has been asking questions about why I'm acting strange, and I don't have the answers, but I'm hoping someone here does. Please, if you know anything about this creature and what is going on, please tell me. I'm so confused and scared. Please, help me. This is my first week in the police academy. I knew I wanted to be a cop since I was a kid, and the day has finally arrived that I got my official offer as a county police officer. It all started yesterday. I woke up at 5 a.m. and double-checked that every crease was neatly ironed in my uniform and gave my boots an extra spit, just to make sure. I knew it was only a matter of time before I fucked up and got told to hit the pavement, but I at least hoped that I'd make it through the first day under the radar. I pulled up to the red brick building, a perfectly rectangular shape. I tried to remember where they told us to park and frantically checked my phone as I crept forward. The back left. The car behind me flicked on and off their headlights, apparently impatient at my slow speed. I landed in a safe parking space and hurried inside before finding my fellow cadets standing in formation on the red brick floor in the front lobby. I mimicked their stance, standing at attention with my hands by my sides. I glanced at the clock. 6:25. 5 minutes left. At that exact moment, the second hand hit 12. An officer with stripes on his sleeve entered the room. 10 hoot! Everyone tightened their stance. How many push-ups should we start our day with? I was thinking of taking it easy on you guys and starting off with 10. What do you think, Hillens? My heart nearly leapt out of my shirt when he said my name. 10 sounds good, sir, I responded. Well, 2 fucking bad, he bellowed. Since some of you think it's okay to text and drive, we're doing 100. Fuck. He was the headlights behind me in the parking lot. I was off to a bad start, completely drenched by the time I finished my 100 push-ups. I was still glad I wasn't the last one to finish, actually. I was the first one. We headed to the classroom, and they started out with some basic house cleaning items from Sergeant Lang. We don't pay for daily cleaners here. They come once a week. So that means it's up to you folks to make sure this place is in top shape at the end of each day. I need 5 people to clean the defensive tactics room, 2 people to collect the trash, and 5 people to mop the floors throughout the building, he explained. He asked for volunteers for the DT room and trash, then paused. Instead of 5 people to mop, I think Hillings can handle it himself, since he thinks he can text and drive at the same time. I knew better than to correct him that I wasn't texting. By the way, have fun with the ghosts, he added with a smirk. 16:30 rolled around. We have 10-hour days, and I mustered up just enough courage to ask Sergeant Lang where the mop and bucket were. With a big-ass grin, he told me they were in the basement. Then he left. It took me nearly an hour just to find the basement. None of the stairwells went down, and I asked every other cadet, but no one knew. It started to sink in that he might have been pulling a trick on me, but I knew the floor needed to be mopped. Did you guys happen to see any mood in here? I asked the guys in DT room as they finished up. No, sorry man, it gets dark early though, you may want to just go home. I won't be caught here at night, George said, as he unbuttoned another button from his shirt. You know this place is haunted, right? Because that's what Lang said to mess with us, I asked. No, because my dad went to this academy and told me all about the weird shit that happened when he was here. This place was an orphanage back in the late 1800s, and a lot of sick shit happened here. He said they intentionally were making the kids sick to cut down on cost and make beds free. Weird shit happens all the time. George threw his rag in the bucket and picked it up to leave. Good luck, bro, he added. I decided to go down the road and bought a mop and bucket myself. It was already getting dark outside, and knew it would take me hours to mop the place. After about 2 hours of mopping, around 20 hours, was when the first thing happened. I heard someone giggling, and I turned around, but no one was there. I continued mopping and played music from my phone to mask the eerie silence. My phone suddenly shut off, and as I reached into my pocket, the door slammed shut. I jumped back, nearly screaming, "What the fuck?" I hurried up and continued to the lobby. I mopped over the red brick floor, and that's when I heard it, another giggle. Then, a cool breeze trickled across the back of my neck, and every hair stood up from my neck to my arms. I rushed and finished and hightailed out of there. This morning, Sergeant Lang approached me on the bricks. How was mopping, Hillings? Good, sir, I responded. So, you found the mop? He asked. No, sir. I bought one at the store, sir. Why the hell didn't you use the one in the basement? Was he serious right now? I couldn't find the basement, sir. He then proceeded to have the entire class line up and follow suit to the basement. He walked down the hallway past the classrooms, past the DT room, and into the equipment room. The equipment room only fit 3 of us at a time, but sure enough, there was a door that led down to the basement. The basement had a dirt floor and stone walls. There was old equipment thrown about the place, and sure enough, a mop and bucket sat at the very edge of the last step. After the small field trip to the basement was over, we headed back upstairs. Just before I closed the door, as I was the last person up, the mop fell over. Sergeant Lang heard the noise too, and grinned as he said, Oh, and the ghosts don't like it when you go in the basement. Have fun mopping tonight. It's our lunch break now, and I'm supposed to go back into the basement, piss off some ghosts, and mop up the damn floor tonight. I was trying to think of how I could avoid going into the basement and decided to wait until everyone left Tuesday and use the mop for my car. Oh, how wrong I was. When dismissal struck, Sergeant Lang came over to me. "Oh, one more thing. I need you to bring up all the rubber guns from the basement for our training tomorrow. They're in the far right corner of the basement." He grinned before adding, "Have fun tonight." It was still light out, so I planned to mop like a madman and tried to get out of there before it got dark. I rushed over to the basement door and grabbed the handle. Locked. Shit. I looked around for a key with no luck. I ran to the back office to try and catch Sergeant Lang, but the only people left in the entire building were the cleaning cadets. He has to be fucking with me, right? I took a minute to brainstorm my options. This wasn't like college. I couldn't just tell Sergeant Lang that the door was locked, and that was why I didn't bring up the rubber guns. They don't accept excuses in the academy. I have to pick this stupid lock. First things first, I whipped out my phone and started YouTubing how to pick a lock. The most useful video offered me a way by using a knife, which I had in my car. I watched the video, then raised my knife to the lock. I ever so gently finagled the knife into the lock. Then the tip snapped off, shooting across the room. God damn it. I walked over to pick it up so that no one stepped on it, and as I bent down, the door swung open and slammed against the wall. The vibration from the hit made me lose my footing, and I fell right on my ass. My first reaction was not relief. I was fucking terrified. I sat on the floor for a moment before rising to my feet. "Hello?" I asked. Silence. I listened closely and could hear the guys from the DT room cleaning up and leaving before I even got to start my chore. I filled my lungs with one deep breath and reached for the light switch. The basement lit up and I could see the yellow mop bucket still at the bottom of the stairs. I carefully walked down the stairs, creaking loudly with each step I took. Luckily, I immediately saw the opened box of rubber guns. I hurried over, picked them up, and wham! The door slammed shut. I stood frozen, hands trembling and barely able to grip the box. I stared at the closed door. I felt a cold breeze trickle down my neck, and right as I went to shimmy it off, I heard them start to giggle. "Guys?" I quietly asked. The giggling grew louder. A child's giggle. I dropped the box and ran up the stairs, grabbed the handle, and with all my weight, shoved my shoulder into it. It wouldn't open. "Fuck!" I screamed. I tried to stay calm, but I was scared shitless. I looked around for what I could use. I realized that the hinges were on the other side of the door, and momentarily kicked myself for not thinking to take the door off its hinges earlier when I tried to come downstairs. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Through my eyelids, I saw everything went dark. I opened my eyes but saw nothing. The lights turned off. I wailed my arms against the door and yelled at the top of my lungs. Just as it had swung shut before, the door suddenly swung open. I fell right through the doorway, grateful to be out of the basement. I couldn't believe it was still light out. I didn't care how many push-ups I'd have to do. I wasn't going back in that basement. I grabbed the mop from my car and cleaned the academy floor with little to no incident, except for the nagging feeling that I was being watched. Part of me thought it was Sergeant Lang watching. The other part thought it was of the children's giggling. Yesterday morning, Sergeant Lang approached me on the red bricks. "Hillings, where the hell are the rubber guns I asked you to bring up from the basement?" "I tried to, sir, but I had trouble with the door to the basement." "What the hell kind of excuse is that?" He screamed. "All right, cadets, everyone drop and start doing burpees until Hillings returns with those rubber guns." Shit. I ran over to the basement door, which was slightly ajar. I flicked on the lights and glanced around. The box laid on the floor where I had dropped it. I ran down the stairs, grabbed the box, and ran back up the stairs. Just as I leapt onto the top step, the door slammed in my face. The last thing I remember before seeing Sergeant Lang's face over my motionless body on the hard ground. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. He helped get me up the stairs, and after seeing the cuts and welts on my arms and legs, he asked, "Did you fall down the stairs?" I thought hard, trying to remember what happened. "I think so," I answered. This was the calmest I had ever seen him. He didn't yell, he didn't reprimand me. He told me it was protocol to have medics come and check out cadets for every injury like that, and I ended up spending most of my day yesterday in the hospital as they checked me for concussions. I don't know what exactly happened in that basement, but I'm glad that one of the last things Sergeant Lang told me yesterday was that I was free from chore duty. I told my dad what happened at the hospital. I didn't give him all the details, but I told him that place was creepy and I didn't know how I fell down the stairs. Surprisingly, he didn't make fun of me at all, which is unlike my old man. "Yeah, that doesn't surprise me," he said. "Really?" I asked. He rubbed his jawbone with his thumb while biting his lower lip. "Yeah, I had some weird shit happen back there, back when I was in the academy too. When I told your grandmother about it, you know what she told me?" "What?" I eagerly asked. "She told me that her mother, your great-grandmother, used to work at that orphanage." He let his words linger through the air. Then he added, "I don't think those children like our family very much." Thanks for watching, Wolfpack. If you want to catch me by the fire next time, I upload every weekend including Friday. Don't forget to like the video as it helps me out more than you know. If you want to submit your story, head down to the description. Now, here's Roken to howl you off to sleep. Have beautiful nightmares.